ओ ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्तिः सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां रामो राजमणिः सदा विजयते रामं रमेशं भजे रामेणाभिहता निशाचरचमु रामाय तस्मै नमः रामान्नास्ति परायणं परतरं रामस्य दासोऽस्म्यहम् रामे चित्तलयः सदा भवतु मे भो राम मामुद्धर समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम् अखण्डं सच्चिदानन्दम् अवाङ्मनसगोचरम् आत्मानमखिलाधारम् आश्रये भीष्टसिद्धये अर्थतोऽप्यद्वयानन्दान् अतीतद्वैतभानतः गुरुनाराध्य वेदान्तसारं वक्ष्ये यथामति। Hari Om. We will chant together from the 32nd verse. असर्पभूतायां रज्जौ सर्पारोपवत् वस्तुनि अवस्तु आरोपः अध्यारोपः वस्तु सच्चिदानन्दम् अद्वयं ब्रह्म अज्ञानादि सकलजडसमूहो वस्तु अज्ञानं तु सदसद्भ्याम् अनिर्वचनीयं त्रिगुणात्मकं ज्ञानविरोधी भावरूपः यत्किंचिद् इति वदन्ति अहम् अज्ञः इत्यादि अनुभवात् देवात्मशक्तिं स्वगुणैर्निगूढाम् इत्यादि श्रुतेश्च। We were in the second chapter where Acharya is elaborating about Adhyaropa and Apavada. This is the main tool, the main technique used to point out the nature of Shuddha Chaitanya. We said Vishaya of Vedanta is Jiva Brahma Aikya, and that oneness which is pointed out, that is referred to as by Shuddha Chaitanya. Now, what is the method to reveal that oneness? That method is called as Adhyaropa and Apavada. Why do we need Adhyaropa, Apavada? Because Brahman is that which doesn't have any attributes, so there is no other way by which we can indicate it. We have to put something on top of it, knowing very well that this thing which we are putting on top of it is avastu. It is not really there, but with the help of that mithya vastu, we can indicate Sat Brahma. Okay, so we had seen what is the purpose of Adhyaropa. The purpose of Adhyaropa is to shift our attention to Chaitanya. With the help of avastu, we are shifting our attention to vastu first. So what all things are included in Avastu? Acharya said, starting from Ajnanam, starting from Maya, starting from this primordial ignorance, all its effects which come after that, either in the form of subtle creation, gross creation, all of that is part of Avastu only. It is a superimposition on this consciousness. Once we understand this method, then you can take any part of creation and turn attention to the substratum. Why? Because everything is adhyaropita. It is superimposed on this same Chaitanya. And when this attention is shifted to Chaitanya, there are a lot of details mentioned about this Avastu also. So in and through that, our Vyavahara, we can learn how to relate with this Avastu. For example, mind will be described, Sharira will be described, how creation came about, all of that will be described. But we should remember that description is part of Avastu. The purpose of Vedanta is not to describe Panchikaranam, how this one appeared as many and how each element combined. Purpose of all of that is to appreciate that whenever we see creation, we should be able to trace back our understanding to Brahma. Okay, that is the main thing, not getting stuck by any description of Avastu. Now, when that happens, Adhyaropa is very well done. Then Mahavakya Vichara comes, where both these entities, there is Adhyaropa done at Tvampada, Adhyaropa which is done at Tatpada. In totality, there is Adhyaropa happening or is done, and then there is Adhyaropa done in individual also. And Mahavakya comes and says, Tat Sat Tvam Asi. That Sat you are. So when Mahavakya is understood, then whatever Avastu Adhyaropa was done, its Apavada takes place. Okay, Apavada means removing. Right? Just like we saw two examples. The soap example, there is already dirt which is there on our hand. Some more thing we add on top of it. You add more soap, but finally the water should wash away the soap and the dirt, and only the pure hand should remain. So that hand represents Brahma. Ajnanam is that dirt. And this Adhyaropa which is done, that is like that soap which is put on it. Another thing we should notice, without Adhyaropa being done thoroughly, if somebody goes in Apavada, then that person can get lost. We will think as though Vedanta is talking about some mystic things and very discreet in its thoughts. There is no systematic thought flow or development. But it is not that way. If Adhyaropa Apavada method is followed systematically, we will be very comfortable when it comes to Apavada. Just like sometimes, sadhakas, they will jump and then come to this point that Jagat is Mithya. Now, unless we have understood that Brahma is substratum of Jagat, unless Adhyaropa of Jagat is done on Brahma, if we say Jagat is Mithya, then we will think there is nothing outside. Or we will think that even Brahma is Mithya. Why? Because when we think about Jagat, our Adhyaropa is not, very nicely done. We have not settled in Adhyaropa. But if Adhyaropa is very well done, what is the understanding? Whenever you see Jagat, you see Brahma. And let us say even in Adhyaropa time, we think Jagat to be Satyam, Brahma also to be Satyam, which is okay. But the advantage that this sadhaka will have is when apavada is done only of conditioning. Jagat nama rupa is mithya. So this sadhaka will be able to say, this jagat is nothing but Brahma. Okay. What is the main point here? That we should not jump to apavada before going through these portions of adhyaropa. Go step by step, systematically understand how this avastu is being superimposed on vastu. And not only understand, but see things in that way. Even at Tvam-pada level, if we directly go to apavada, what is apavada there? You say, I am not this body, I am not this mind, I am not this ahankar. Before that, adhyaropa should have happened. What is adhyaropa? I understand that mind has emerged from this Chaitanya. Body has emerged from this Chaitanya. Then, when Mahavakya comes and apavada is done of physical body, mind, and ahankara, then the sadhaka doesn't get lost. He has something to hold on to. He says, I am that Brahman in which all these things were superimposed. This is the prakriya, this is the method. So Mahatmas give one story. They say, whenever there is a mountain, let us say you want to go for a hike somewhere, and you ask somebody, say, where is that, where is the mountain top? So that person shows you, this is that mountain top. It's very pretty. Once you go there, the view that you will get is, unmatched. But he says, I will come with you and I will guide you on every step how to go. He says, no, you don't come. I will find my own way. It's here only, right? Because he's standing in that village and looking at that mountain. That mountain top looks very much in reach. So he says, it is here only. I will figure out. You don't come. But that goal, which was seen so clearly, but when he goes in the village, that goal gets lost. Why? Because he did not follow the method. That person would have told him how to go, what are the instructions at every point. Then you go there and say, okay, whatever instructions I needed, that is of no use now because I have reached my goal. They say adhyaropa apavada method is like this. If we directly want to go to the goal, negate everything as mithya without following the process, without taking those milestones and instructions like that person would have given this traveler, we will get lost. In between, our mind will give so much of new troubles. Physical body, there might be something that comes. At that time, one should be able to very well go through it, but not lose sight of the goal. Okay, so adhyaropa has its own importance. And more we appreciate the main principle behind it, any text of Vedanta you study will be able to appreciate this method. You can try to do it as a homework. Look at whatever other text you have studied. All will be Vedanta Granthas only. Most of the text will include both of it. There might be few texts which will have only adhyaropa, no apavada. But many texts, or I would say 90% of the text, will include both of it. We have to appreciate how adhyaropa is done, how apavada is done. Okay, this was what we had seen about adhyaropa and apavada. Then Acharya went into elaborating what is the first element in this avastu. Right? Avastu is being superimposed on vastu. So what is avastu? Ajnanadi sakala jada samuha. Ajnanam is there in the beginning, Maya is there in the beginning, and then entire inert creation that comes after that. So he'll describe all of it until 121st verse. So Ajnanam, that definition we had seen. Now it is called as primordial ignorance because this is not ignorance about any other worldly object. Okay, this is not ignorance about, oh, I don't know Sanskritam, I don't know to write a computer programming, I don't know physics. It is not ignorance about another thing of this world. It is ignorance about our own true nature as Ananda Swarupa, our own nature as substratum of this creation, Sat Swarupa. Ignorance about our nature as pure consciousness, not associated with this mind. This ignorance is called as Mula Vidya, or you can use the word Ajnanam. But that word primordial we say, right? What is primordial about it? One is this ignorance is, ancient. It has been there for time immemorial. That is why we have gotten this physical body. Okay, one meaning of that is ancient. But another meaning of primordial ignorance is, it is ignorance about nature of Atma. Okay. So that ignorance, Ajnanam, is described in 34th verse. It is indescribable. You cannot say it is Sat, nor can you say it is Asat. With this point of view, with this respect, in this respect, it is indescribable. You cannot say Ajnanam is not there, nor can you say Ajnanam is there. Then it is Trigunatmakam. It has three gunas, Sattva, Rajas, Tamo guna. It is not going to stay forever. It has Jnanam as its enemy. That's why it is Jnana Virodhi. And it is Bhava Rupam. It is not only absence of knowledge. There is some entity, not a real entity, but there is some entity called as Ajnanam, whose effect we are seeing as this Kartrutva, doership, enjoyership, thinking ourselves to be this limited being and this whole world. So many effects are seen. So there is something called as Ajnanam, which is Bhava Rupa. Yat kinchid iti vadanti, something is there. And then aham ajnaha ityadi anubhavat. I am ignorant. This anubhava is there to all of us. Although we never say that. We might be ignorant, but we never like to admit that we are ignorant. It expresses as our convictions. What we say actually doesn't matter. If somebody asks us, are you this person or are you substratum of creation? You say, what kind of question is this? I am this person. This is my name. This is my job. This is what my relations are. I am father of so and so, mother of so and so, son of so and so. That itself is a statement. Aham ajnaha. Aham ajnaha ityadi anubhavat means result of ignorance is seen. So that is why it is Bhava Rupa. Now that last portion we had not seen in the previous session. Devatma Shaktim Swagunair Nigudha. Now this is a quotation from Shvetashvatara Upanishad. So what is this Ajnanam? Say Ajnanam is Shakti of Deva. Shakti of that Brahma. That is how this Ajnanam is defined. Devatma Shaktim, it is not independent. It doesn't have its own existence also. Okay, but we should remember, Shakti word belongs to Ajnanam or Maya. Its ashraya, its substratum is Brahma. Okay, we'll come to that point, but this is a very subtle point. Sometimes we use Shakti word for Brahma. As you know, it is Shakti of Brahma, means it is appearing in Brahma. Brahman by itself has no Maya. Nirguna Brahma has no Shakti of any kind. Okay, so that is this Devatma Shakti. It is not independent. Ajnanam is not independent. It is ashrita. No, it is superimposed, you can say, or it is, what is the closest translation for ashrita? Supported. Ajnanam is supported in this Chaitanya. Okay. Devatma Shaktim Swagunaihi Nigudha. Guna Shabda here refers to effects. Guna here doesn't refer to Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. What is being said here is that Maya Shakti, that itself is hidden by its effect. Devatma Shaktim Swagunaihi Nigudha. It is hidden by its karyam. We see only prapancha, we see names and forms. Sometimes it is even difficult to appreciate that there is Maya Shakti at the root of all this prapancha. Okay, that is why this quotation has come. First, to show that this Chaitanya, this Ajnanam or Maya is not independent, it is Devatma Shakti. And second is, this Shakti itself is hidden by its effects. Devatma Shaktim Swagunaihi Nigudha. Brahman is also hidden by these effects. But even to come to this point, that all this plurality has one Shakti as its root, even that point is hidden. Okay. So now the question comes, how can this, Shakti reside in Brahman, which is non-dual, which is asanga? It doesn't have any contact with anything. So how did these three gunas come to reside in Brahma? You see, three gunas are residing in Brahma, just like the blue color is residing in space. Meaning it is not really there, it is an appearance in Brahma. Okay, there is Satta Bheda, two different degrees of reality. Gunas will always be in Brahma. Maya Shakti will always be in Brahma, but it will not make Brahman become dual. Like, the blue color in the sky, they don't become two things, right? There is still the same sky, but the appearance of blueness does not bring duality in that space, does not bring duality in that sky. In the same way, Maya Shakti doesn't bring duality in Chaitanya. But it cannot appear independently. The only place where it is appearing or where it can appear is Chaitanya. Why do we say that? Why do we say it cannot appear somewhere else? There is nowhere else to go, because entire creation is, Vistara. It's an elaboration of these three gunas only. So where else will it go to find Ashraya? Right? It cannot find Ashraya in something of its own creation. So there has to be something which is different from creation. That is this Brahma. Okay. So Shakti, what we just saw, right, doesn't make Shaktiman dual. Okay, Shakti and Shaktiman are always together. But because they are together, they don't become two. Simple example is, I and my ability to speak. Right? Ability to speak is Shakti, and I am Shaktiman. Whenever I need that Shakti, I can invoke it. And when I don't need it, there is no relevance of that Shakti. Right? I can be by myself without using that Shakti. But because that Shakti is there, it doesn't mean I have become another person. When I start speaking, I'm somebody. And when I'm not speaking, I'm somebody else. Right? Same Shaktiman with Shakti does not become two. We are studying Advaita Vedanta, so we should hold on to this finer points. Maya and Brahma don't bring about Dvaitam in Advaita Vedanta. In other darshanas, Maya is independent, Brahma is independent. Like in Sankhya Darshana or Yoga Darshana. These are the finer points. You say Vedanta and Yoga, everything is same. It is same as far as sadhanas are concerned. When it comes to Siddhanta, Sankhya or Yoga Darshana says Prakriti is independent, Purusha is independent. Vedanta says Prakriti is there, but it is superimposed in Purusha. Or in Brahma, this Maya is superimposed. Okay, so Shakti and Shaktiman don't become two. Now you see, if you use the word Shakti for Brahma, right? What is the problem? You can remain without Shakti. Right? Like for example, speaking is my Shakti. I say if I don't have to speak to anybody, then I don't have to invoke that Shakti. Shakti becomes irrelevant at that point. Now, if Brahma becomes Shakti, then there will be a time when you don't need Brahma. Right? And Shakti always is related to karma. Okay, how do we say that this person has power, this person has Shakti? Any Shakti it might be. If we are talking about physical Shakti, we say how much can he lift? Right? Based on that, we estimate his physical strength. Even our cars, they have horsepower, right? 120 bhp, they say. Now, what is that? Means how much of karma can it do? How steep can it climb? How fast can it go? Now, based on that karma, relevance of Shakti is there. Now, if you say Brahma is Shakti, and you take out karma, it says relevance of this Shakti will become 0. Means relevance of Brahma will become 0. We say that is the fallacy over there. Brahma is Ashraya of Shakti. Brahma is not Shakti. Shakti is Maya only. The 3 gunas which are there, they show different kinds of Shakti. These are very precise Vedantic terms. More we hold on to it, we will benefit from it. We also hear this statement, right? Matter is nothing but energy in different form. Right? Matter is nothing but energy in different form. And that word energy, we put sometimes for Brahma. Brahman is that energy which enlivens everything. You see, it enlivens, but it is not energy in that way. Energy is Maya Shakti only, and Maya alone appears as matter. Maya alone appears as energy. That particular statement is very close to Vedantic understanding. We don't say matter is something independent. What do we say? Maya itself, which has this 3 Shakti, is appearing as matter. Right? And what is matter? Matter is something which has the ability to bring change. Right? Or energy is something which has the ability to bring change. That energy alone is appearing as this matter. Okay. But energy will go with Maya Shakti, not with Brahma. Now, what is the Shakti of, Maya? Because Ajnanam by itself has never become a Shakti for us. Right? You see, what are we seeing now? Definition of Ajnana. And what was defined in the last part? Devatma Shaktim Swagunair Nigudham. So they said the Shakti is, a power. What is this Shakti? Ajnanam is being called a Shakti over here. So how do we understand this? So we say those 3 gunas which are there, they have their own Shaktis. Sattva Guna has the power of knowledge. Jnana Shakti is there in Sattva Guna. So all our sense organs have come from Sattvic aspect, right? The Jnanendriyas which are there, Tattva Bodha we had seen this. All these Jnanendriyas have come from Sattvic aspect. Rajoguna has Kriyatmaka Shakti. The power of action. To do something, one needs, this Rajoguna. And Tamoguna also has Vishrama Shakti. To give us rest, that, Shakti is there in Tamoguna. That is why few days we don't get sleep at night. Then all this Vishrama is gone and there is so much of mind is restless. It has not gone back to its Swarupa. Okay, so all three of them, three gunas, have their own Shaktis. That is why this word is used, Devatma Shakti. This Ajnanam itself has this Shakti. Or Ajnanam itself is called Shakti. Okay, so these points, we should just reflect upon it. Most importantly, that Shakti word goes with Maya or Ajnanam. It doesn't go with Brahma. Shakti is a superimposition on this Chaitanya, not independent. Okay. Now this same verse we chant every time in the Mangalacharanam of our Ramcharitmanas. Yan Maya Vashavarti Vishwamakhilam Brahmadi Devasura. With that Maya Shakti, one who has under the control, or Maya Shakti has all these Devatas and Asuras, under its control. Yat Satvat Amrushaiva Bhati Sakalam Rajjav Yatha Her Brahma. Means that Maya Shakti which gets its existence from this Chaitanya. Just like that illusory snake gets existence from that rope. Yat Satvat Amrushaiva Bhati Sakalam Rajjav Yatha Her Brahma. And this substratum alone, that is Bhagwan Rama. That feet of Bhagwan Rama is the only boat for this sadhaka to cross over this Maya. That is a Mangalacharanam that we do. To cross over this ocean of samsara. Means to transcend Maya, holding on to Bhagwan, increasing Sattva Guna, and knowing his nature as substratum. Now, there is a very unique aspect of this Ajnanam, which is described in Vedantasara, which you will not find in other places. Now, Acharya is going to say, this Ajnanam appears at two levels, or it can be looked at two levels. One is individual level, as each human being having, or each jiva having Ajnanam, or it can be looked at totality level, Samashti Ajnanam. Now this is something unique. In other texts, they will just take one, mostly it is individual, and then continue. They will not give the other perspective. But Vedantasara Acharya says, we should look at Ajnanam and its effect at two levels, and also recognize that it's only a matter of perspective. We can look at Samashti Ajnanam only, the total Ajnanam only, and in that include this Vyashti Ajnanam. So Vyashti is not something totally independent. You look at Samashti and understand nature of Atma. He takes, that method. We'll see more when it comes, but this is just an introduction to that part. It is looking at individual and total. Let us see 35th and 36th verse. Idam ajnanam samashti vyashti abhiprayena samashti vyashti abhiprayena ekam anekam iti cha vyavahriyate तथा हि यथा वृक्षाणां समष्टि अभिप्रायेण वनम इति एकत्वव्यपदेशः यथा वा जलानां समष्टि अभिप्रायेण जलाशयः इति तथा नानात्वेन प्रतिभासमानानां जीवगत अज्ञानानां समष्टि अभिप्रायेण तदेकत्वव्यपदेशः अजाम एकाम इत्यादि श्रुतेः 35th verse. Idam ajnanam samashti vyashti abhiprayena ekam anekam iti cha vyavahriyate. Idam ajnanam. Which ajnanam? The one that we just described. 34th verse. We just elaborately saw what is this ajnanam. Different facets were described. That same ajnanam. That's why he says idam ajnanam, which is very fresh in your mind right now. Idam ajnanam samashti vyashti abhiprayena. From the standpoint of totality and individuality, ekam anekam iti cha vyavahriyate. It is labeled, it is named as one or many. So this ekam you can say vyashti, and anekam you can say, no, ekam you can say samashti, and anekam you can say vyashti. Why? Because manyness will be there only when there is individuals. So either you can say there is one ajnanam, okay, ekam means that there is only one ajnanam, or you can say there are many, ajnanam, or ajnanam is many. Right? So in both ways, they have been defined. And there are Shruti mantras which support both these perspectives. What is the first one? That there is only one Maya, there is one ajnanam. And the second perspective is there is manyness. This ajnanam is appearing as many. Both are there. Then he gives two very classical examples which Acharya is going to hold on for this entire Vedantasara, at least until Adhyaropa is going on. He is going to hold on to these two examples. What are they? He says, Tatha iha yatha. Tatha yatha has come here from our Sanskritam class. Tatha iha yatha vrukshanam samashti abhiprayena vanam iti ekatva vyapadeshaha. Now there is a tree, let us say. One vruksha is there. So what do you call that tree? You say this is a tree. But you multiply that tree, plant another one, third one, fourth one, fifth one. One tree only you are planting. Now let us say you have 10,000 trees. Now what you call, that group of trees, we say we are calling it as a forest. But nothing has drastically changed per se. If you look at it from the standpoint of a part, then it is one tree. But if you just take a step back and look at it as a whole, then the same group of trees, you call it as forest. So what is he pointing out here? That ajnanam can be looked at from two standpoints. Either from individual standpoint, where if you take that perspective, then there is manyness. We have so many one individual trees. Like that, you have ajnanam appearing as many. But if you take a step back and look at it as a whole, then you just have one thing. Like that forest is one thing. You have only one ajnanam. Okay, so this is one example. Now, second example is yathava jalanam samashti abhiprayena jalashayah iti. If you have a lake, a reservoir is given here, but if you have a pond or a lake, if you go closer to it, what is it made up of? It is made up of drops only, right? One water drop is from an individual standpoint. But if you take a step back and look at it as a whole, then that whole thing is called as a lake. So what is he pointing out here? Individual and total. You can look at it from Vyashti standpoint, or you can look at it from Samashti standpoint. Okay, so two examples he gave. One was of a tree and a forest. Second example was drop and lake, or a drop and a pond. Now he says, in the same way, tatha nanatvena pratibhasamananam jivagata ajnananam samashti abhiprayena tad ekatva vipadesha. Just like you had individual group of trees from a total standpoint being called a forest. In the same way, this ajnanam, which is jivagata. Jivagata means what? Although the substratum of ajnanam is Brahma, but its expression is seen in jiva. Right? So the individual, in that individual, this ajnanam is seen. That is why jivagata ajnanana. But the samashti of it, that also can be looked at as one entity. Just like you looked at the collection of those trees as one forest, so this ajnanam, the totality, can also be looked at as one. And both of them are described in Upanishads. So this quotation is for, there is only one ajnanam. Ajam ekam lohitam shukla krishnam. So this quotation Swamiji is given on 39th page. In the English footnotes, you see that Sanskrit quotation is there. That is this quotation. Ajam ekam lohita shukla krishnam bahvih praja srujamanam sarupa. Ajam literally means goat. Okay. Aja, right, means a goat. If you literally look at this meaning, there is one goat which is made up of three colors. It is made up of red, white, and black. And from that, entire creation has come. And this is what happens when you take literal meaning of it. But Ajam over here means Maya, which is Anadi. So there is only one Maya, which is at the root of this entire creation. All jivas, everything are appearing in that Maya only. Lohita Shukla Krishnam means it has three gunas. Lohita is Rajoguna. Shukla means white, it is Sattva Guna. And Krishna means dark color, it is Tamo Guna. Lohita means reddish. So Rajoguna is Lohita, Sattva Guna is Shukla, and Tamo Guna is Krishna. Bahvi Praja Srujamana Sarupa. This Maya Shakti only has given rise to all this variety. Okay. But what is the main point here? That Maya is one. But then there are some Shruti mantras. Indro Maya Bihi Pururupa Iyate. Which say that Maya is many, this one Chaitanya has become many with the help of this Maya Shakti, which itself is appearing as many. So Maya is called as one in one place, and Maya is called as many in another place. So both ways are okay. Now, why are these two examples given of forest and of water and pond? I say it's a very subtle Vedantic Siddhanta over here. One example is of Avachedavada. Vruksha, the tree and forest, that example is of Avachedavada. And this drop and that lake, that example is of Pratibimbavada. Now the question becomes, what are these vadas? In simple words, vadas are different methods of doing adhyaropa. Okay, there is no one vada greater than another vada. There are different ways of doing adhyaropa, different ways of defining Jiva and Jagat and Ishvara. But the main goal of all the vadas is to arrive at Shuddha Chaitanya. Okay, so here two vadas are mentioned. Every vada will have its own strong points. Every vada will have its limitations. When it comes, we will see a little bit what are the differences, what are the plus points in that vada. But we should just get familiar with the name over here. The forest example is for Avachedavada, and the drop and the lake example is for Pratibimbavada. Okay, we have seen this a little bit in Hastamalaka Stotram. Pratibimbavada we saw, but over here we'll get to see it in more detail. So I hope you are catching the flow of thought now. Ajnanam was described, and now in 35th and 36th verse it was said, this Ajnanam can be looked at from two standpoints. One is individual standpoint, another is total standpoint. Now, why are we doing this, difference? Why these examples are given? Why is it said individual and total? See, remember, we have to do Adhyaropa. So it has to be done at Tvampada level for Jiva, and it has to be done at Tatpada level for Ishvara. So that is why these two differences are pointed out. Okay, Ajnanam will work at Jiva's level also, but this Ajnanam also works at Ishvara level also. But the beauty is that Ajnanam which works for Ishvara, it doesn't delude Bhagavan. Okay. Why? That reason is given 37th verse. Iyam samashtihi utkrushta upaditaya vishuddha sattva pradhana. This samashti upadi which is there, samashti ajnanam don't have the colloquial meaning of it. It is not any ordinary ignorance we are talking about. This is Mula Vidya. Okay, Maya Shakti, whatever we described in 34th verse, that Ajnanam. This Ajnanam, which is Samashti, which is appearing in Samashti, Iyam Samashtihi, Utkrushta Upaditaya, Vishuddha Sattva Pradhana. Something wonderful happens when it works at Samashti level. It becomes a conditioning which is exalted conditioning. Utkrushta Upadi. Okay, Utkrishta means exalted. Just for the sake of opposite, don't take it in another sense. One is Utkrishta Upadi. What will be the other sense? We say Nikrishta Upadi. Or mellower word is Samanya Upadi. For Jiva's conditioning is Samanya Upadi or Nikrishta Upadi. But conditioning of Ishvara, conditioning of Ishvara is Utkrushta Upadhi. Why is it Utkrushta? Because it is Vishuddha Sattva Pradhana. Out of the three gunas, Sattva, Rajas and Tamas, there is extraordinary predominance of Sattva Guna. So much so that Rajoguna and Tamoguna have no effect. I mean, they are unnoticed as though. Or another way to look at it is, Rajoguna and Tamoguna are very much under control of Sattva Guna. That is why Bhagwan's conditioning is Vishuddha Sattva. Okay, so what is the conditioning over here? There is Shuddha Chaitanya, and then there is this Vishuddha Sattva Upadhi, Maya Upadhi at total cosmic level. Together, it gets the name Ishvara. That Chaitanya only, next to this conditioning, along with this conditioning of Maya, gets the name Ishvara. Okay, and what is conditioning? Upadhi, this word we had seen earlier also. It is there in the proximity of that thing. It is putting its attributes on that thing, but it is not bringing about any change in that thing. Okay, that is Upadhi. Just like you have a crystal and a red flower. So the red flower is throwing its attributes on that crystal, but not bringing about any change in that crystal. In the same way, this Samashti Upadhi, this Samashti Ajnanam or Maya Shakti which is there, it is there in the proximity of Chaitanya, but it is not throwing any, it is not bringing about any change in Chaitanya. It is throwing attributes. What are those attributes? That we will see in the next verse. And this is happening at Samashti level, happening at cosmic level. Okay, that is this Samashti. Now another question comes. If you say that Samashti is aggregation of this Vyashti, now there is so much of limitation in Vyashti, so much of impurity is there in Vyashti, so much confusion is there in Vyashti, individual. And if you put all these confused individuals together, the totality should become super confused. Right? So Bhagwan should be confused about everything, because if you say everything is just like one tree by tree made that forest, and you say one jiva by jiva makes Ishvara, then wouldn't the totality or Ishvara have all limitations? We say no. Whenever we look at Samashti, it is not only this summation. Okay, it is summation plus everything else. Okay, so whenever Samashti comes, it has difference in its nature compared to Vyashti. Simple example is this. If let us say we are 100 people sitting in this room, and I ask one person to sing, right? And let us say that person doesn't have music samskara. That person will try to sing whatever that person sings. Now second person you ask to sing, second one will sing. That person also doesn't have music samskara. But now let us say I ask all 100 people to repeat. Now in that Samashti, all the limitations of Vyashti are dissolved. There is no difference. That's why chorus chanting is always sweet. And if somebody is off tune here and there, everything is included. Because whoever is having that swara samskara, their voice, will take everybody together. But the main point is, when it comes to Samashti, it has a difference compared to this Vyashti. Okay, and more this Vyashti can tune with Samashti, more happy and cheerful this Vyashti can be. That one person says, I'll sing in my own tune. Even if everybody is singing, can, but he'll be very distinctly noticed. Even in that forest example, you can apply the same thing. What a forest can do, that tree cannot do. Okay, although forest is aggregation of trees, but it is aggregation of trees and much more. Okay, you can get lost in a forest, you cannot get lost in a tree. You can feel afraid going in a forest, but you will not feel afraid of a tree. The point here is Samashti has difference compared to Vyashti. That's why this line has come. Iyam Samashtihi Utkrushta Upaditaya Vishuddha Sattva Pradhana. Otherwise, the question would be, what was so different? What changed, when it went to Samashti? How come suddenly it became Utkrushta Upadi Pradhana? He says, no, whenever there is Samashti, it has a difference and it is more purer compared to this Vyashti. Even in that water and lake example, no doubt that lake is aggregation of water particles. But if you want to take a boat, you cannot do it in a drop. You have to do it in that lake. The point is, Samashti has different nature compared to Vyashti. Okay. That is this 37th verse. Now, what did we do? Defined Ajnanam. We said that Ajnanam appears at two levels, totality level and individual level. And the nature of that total Ajnanam, that is being described in 37th verse. Okay, it is Vishuddha Sattva Pradhana. Now, when this Ajnanam, which is an Upadi, we said that Upadi is something which is situated near it and it throws its attribute on that other thing. So Ajnanam was Upadi. This thing on which attributes were thrown, that thing is called as Upahita. Okay, so what is that thing? That is Chaitanya. At total level, the same Chaitanya which is there, it became Upahita Chaitanya because of this conditioning of Ajnanam. So that Upahita Chaitanya is called as Ishvara. Okay, essential nature of Ishvara, essential nature of Bhagwan is Shuddha Chaitanya. But along with its conditioning, that Chaitanya gets the name of Ishvara. This we saw in Ramcharitmanas also. What we say Saguna Brahma is only with conditionings. But when we say Nirguna Brahma, it is just pointing out to that Shuddha Chaitanya devoid of conditionings. Okay, so Saguna and Nirguna are not two Brahmans. It is the same Nirguna Chaitanya. One is with conditionings, Saguna Brahma. If you take out the conditioning, it is Nirguna Brahma. And if you match everything that we have discussed so far, these conditionings being in the proximity of Brahma or Chaitanya doesn't bring duality. Okay, this point we had seen earlier. Devatma Shaktim Swagunair Nigudha. So that Shakti is in proximity of this Brahma. I'll conclude with one story from Bhagavatam, 38th verse we'll see in the next session. Those who have attended Bhagavatam last Sunday, we saw this story there. Our Puranas are so beautiful that same Siddhanta is presented in a story format. But if you remember the story, then the Siddhanta becomes more clear. This story is of one Devata. Just like you have Gandharvas, like that there are Vidyadharas. So one Vidyadhara, his name was only Vidyadhara. He was the king of all Vidyadharas, the Devatas who are there. One day, this Vidyadhara, he was going in the sky and he saw Parvati ji and Lord Shiva seated in Kailasa. And when they were seated, he saw other Rishi Munis in front, and Lord Shiva is giving Upanishadic teaching to these Rishi Munis. Some Upanishad, Lord Shiva must be teaching, Brahma Sutra. And this Vidyadhara sees Parvati ji sitting on the lap of Lord Shiva. And this Vidyadhara, he had some pride. He thought he alone is the most sattvic person. He is the only sadhaka, and he starts passing some, sarcastic remarks about Lord Shiva. He says, Esha Loka Guru. This is Loka Guru. He is going to teach and, give this knowledge of Brahma Vidya to all the Rishi Munis. Lord Shiva just looks and smiles. But Parvati ji, she doesn't like what this Vidyadhara has said, and she curses this Vidyadhara. He says, you have, Asuric, vritti, become an Asura. And that Vidyadhara becomes Vrutrasura, who comes and fights against Indra. But he is a great devotee of Bhagwan, which is why he had become Vidyadhara, and that is how that Vrutrasura also shows a lot of devotion. But the main point here is, what was the symbolic meaning of Parvati ji sitting with Lord Shiva? Even in many pictures we see it, Ardhanarishwara. Meaning these gunas, Parvati ji represents the three gunas or Maya Shakti. It will always be ashrita. It will always be dependent. It will always be rooted in Chaitanya. Lord Shiva is that Chaitanya, and Maya Shakti will always be residing in Chaitanya. And in Lord Shiva's eyes, there is no duality. Shakti and Shaktiman don't become two. So he doesn't see Parvati ji as somebody different from him. And he says, other than Brahma, there can be no ashraya of Shakti. Other than this Chaitanya, Shakti will not have any other place where it will find its ashraya. Okay, this is symbolic meaning of it. Another way to look at it is, Brahma Vidya always lives in Jnani. So Parvati ji represents Brahma Vidya. This knowledge always abides or resides in this Jnani. That is another way to look at it. But this entire depiction in Puranas, all of that is rooted in these verses, these concepts of Vedanta. And next verse is a beautiful verse describing nature of Bhagavan. According to Vedanta, what is Bhagavan's nature? Saguna, Nirguna, both of it. Vedantasara Acharya has, taken the ripened fruits from all Upanishads, compiled it, and he's giving us in one place. Okay, that we will see in the next session. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. In all examples of superimposition, the effect, the snake or the blue sky, are negated as unreal. Only the substratum, that is the support, is real. How do we reconcile existence of Maya Shakti as being supported in Brahman, but being distinct from Brahman? So Maya Shakti is also negated. Just like that snake was negated, blue color in the sky was negated. Maya Shakti also will be negated. But because it has been understood, or the substratum has been understood, Chaitanya has been understood as non-dual, whatever is appearing as different from Brahma, that also is understood as Brahma only. right? So after Tattvajnanam, one should not say there is Brahma and there is Maya. This Maya part was Adhyaropa, and when Apavada is done, Maya also is understood to be Brahma Swarupa. During Vedanta Ramanam, Puja Guruji had pointed this thing out, He had said that when you say Maya is different from Brahma, that is part of Adhyaropa. But Tattvajnanam, it should not say that, after Tattvajnanam, one should not say Maya becomes Mithya or, Maya is something different. The main knowledge there is Maya also is Brahma Swarupa. There is nothing which remains different from Brahma. After that snake is negated, you can very well say that snake is nothing but the rope. Illusory snake. That being negated, that snake is nothing but rope. Okay, in that way we can look at it. Why is it distinct from it? It is distinct because their natures are different. Right? Maya Shakti has 3 gunas. Brahma is nirguna. There are no parts in Brahma. So in that way they will have difference in their nature. Does Saguna Brahma mean Ishvara, which is Chaitanya with Maya Shakti? Yes, Saguna Brahma means Ishvara, and that Ishvara is Chaitanya plus Maya. Okay. Now, when we study Vedanta, we should appreciate the definition part of it. Devotion will make the same definition sweeter. Okay. In devotion, we will not say it is Chaitanya plus Maya Shakti. We will say something more in a sweeter way. Daivi Hesha Gunamayi, Mama Maya Duratyaya. You see how Bhagavan Krishna says, this Maya is Daivi, and it is Mama Maya. It is my power, my Shakti. Okay, Avacheda and Pratibimbavada, I will elaborate it next session. In my understanding, is my understanding that Shiva and Vishnu are Ishvara, Saguna Brahma with Maya Shakti. Yes, all Devatas, all Saguna form of Bhagavan. All of that is Saguna. But when we think about Lord Vishnu, Lord Shiva, it is one form that we are familiar with. Now, 38th verse is still talking about Saguna only, but formless Saguna. It is called as Saguna Nirakara. Okay. Same Saguna Nirakara can be worshipped in one form, which becomes Saguna Sakara. Akara means form. Sa Akara means with form. Nir Akara means without form. But both are Saguna only. So 38th verse is talking about Saguna Brahma, but it is without a form. And when we appreciate this, our depth in our devotion to Bhagwan should become more and more. That my Bhagwan is not only in one form, his real power is this. What is said in 38th verse. Next session we will see. How do you understand the absolute standpoint? We cannot use this mind or any conditioning to understand that. Absolute standpoint means nature of Nirguna Brahma. How to understand? Well, we use the mind to negate everything else. And this mind also. Okay, so we are not looking to understand the absolute through the mind or as an object of the mind. Right? So mind is used first to purify itself, Vyavahara to be very good, but after that, just to negate all Drushya Prapancha. Okay. Hari Om everyone. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.